Angus Taylor here. He's about to unveil his new look front bench.
I'm delighted to be here with Jane, with Tim and with Claire to announce the new coalition front bench. But before I do, I just want to make a couple of comments about the ISIS brides. The first job of any government is to keep Australians safe, to protect our way of life. Anthony Albanese's government needs to come clean with the Australian people on these so-called ISIS brides. Are any of these ISIS-linked individuals coming back to Australia? Are passports being processed, or will they be? What specific security assessments have been or will be undertaken? And has the government used or even considered using its temporary exclusion order powers? These are individuals who chose to associate with a terrorist caliphate. This is not aligned with the values we as Australians believe in: democracy, the rule of law, our basic freedoms, including freedom of religion. The door must be shut to people who do not believe in those things. Australians expect our borders and communities to be protected from individuals connected to extremist violence. Security agencies must have full oversight of any returnees. Leaving this to chaotic circumstances overseas is absolutely unacceptable. We have seen in the past where individuals linked to ISIS have posed real threats. We cannot repeat those past mistakes by being passive. Now, moving on to more positive things. As I said, I'm delighted to be here today to announce the new coalition front bench. This is a team that blends proven experience with the next generation of coalition talent. The team is designed to do two key things. One, prosecute Labor's failures. It's a long list. The worst government in our nation's history. And two, ensure the coalition is ready to govern and change Australia for the better. Because right now, the country we love is changing for the worse. Prices are through the roof, interest rates and inflation are going up, home ownership is out of reach to so many Australians, businesses are struggling, industries are moving overseas, record immigration has added pressures to housing, to infrastructure, to services. Our borders have been open to people who hate our way of life, people who want to bring violence and hate from other parts of the world to our shores. And our Defence Force is underfunded for the dangers of our times. This new team will also see the return of our National Party colleagues, a decision endorsed by the Liberal Party leadership team just a short time ago. Today marks a fresh beginning, an opportunity to put the past behind us and to remember that our historic strength comes through unity. And unity is again needed for strength. A coalition government that I lead will restore Australia's standard of living and protect our way of life. Australians are doing it tough. Too many families are working harder just to keep up with rising prices, rising interest rates. They're feeling the pain of higher taxes, higher energy bills, and a government that simply stopped listening. Australia needs responsible spending, lower taxes and a rising standard of living. Senator Jane Hume, who I'm delighted to have here, my deputy here today, will drive our plan to rebuild an economy that rewards effort, that re-injects aspiration into the Australian dream. As Shadow Minister for Employment and Industrial Relations and Shadow Minister for Productivity and Deregulation, she'll focus on getting wages up by lifting productivity and making it easier for Australians to get ahead. Tim Wilson, I'm delighted to have here today as well, as Shadow Treasurer, will lead our push for responsible spending, lower taxes and lower inflation. He is a proven fighter against Labor's higher taxes that are making Australians poorer. He and the entire coalition will fight ferociously against Labor's bad taxes, taxes on homes, taxes on superannuation, taxes on our children's future. Senator Jacinta Price returns to Shadow Cabinet as the Shadow Minister for Small Business and Shadow Minister for Skills and training. Australia's 2.8 million small businesses are the engine room of our economy, the lifeblood of our communities. But under Labor, they have been forgotten. Supporting Australians who take risks, who invest in the future of their businesses and our nation is incredibly important. And I know Jacinta is absolutely passionate about the role that small businesses play in our communities and in our great country. And I know she will do an outstanding job. Senator Claire Chandler, who is right beside me here today, I'm delighted to have her here as well, will take on finance, government services and the public service. She'll hold Labor to account for its budget blowouts and skyrocketing debt, which will be passed on to our children and grandchildren to pay back. Tony Passon will back her as Shadow Minister for Scrutiny of Government Waste and Accountability, taking aim at Labor's rorts and waste that are driving up inflation, contributing to higher prices and making it much harder for Australians to make ends meet on a daily basis. Aaron Violi will enter the ministry as Shadow Minister for Digital Economy, Science, Technology and Innovation, as well as cyber security. Aaron will drive the digital and AI reforms needed to lift productivity, attract investment and keep Australia economically secure, something that he's worked on much in the past in these areas. Economic prosperity doesn't happen by accident. It requires vision, discipline and coordination across all parts of government. Andrew Hastie will return to Shadow Cabinet as Shadow Minister for Industry and Sovereign Capability. I've also asked him to serve as Deputy Leader in the House of Representatives. Andrew will align our economic and security agendas, ensuring Australia can make more and make more of what we need in our country, on our land, in our borders. He will lead the fight against Labor's net zero tax on Australian manufacturing that's causing investment in our country to dry up and the jobs of hard-working Australians to go offshore. Dan Tehan will continue as Shadow Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction and will assume the role of Manager of Opposition Business in the House of Representatives. Energy is the economy. We can't rebuild manufacturing without cheaper, more reliable power, and families need relief from rising bills. Dan will hold Labor to account for its absolute and abject energy failures. Supporting him is Garth Hamilton, a qualified engineer, someone who has had deep experience in the energy sector as Shadow Assistant Minister for Energy Security and Affordability. The Coalition will also protect our way of life and unapologetically defend Australian values. Senator Michaelia Cash will return to the Attorney General's portfolio and continue as Leader of the Opposition in the Senate. Michaelia is an absolutely exceptional lawyer and a relentless parliamentary prosecutor. Her mission is simple: protect those freedoms that make Australia the greatest country on earth. Senator John O'Donoghue will serve as Shadow Minister for Home Affairs and Shadow Minister for Immigration. The Coalition will stand for immigration policy that puts the interests of Australians first and puts Australian values at the centre of that policy. For too long, immigration numbers have been too high and standards have been too low. If someone doesn't subscribe to our core beliefs, the door must be shut. Australia faces the most dangerous strategic environment since World War II, and we must stand as a coherent, strong middle power, strengthen our alliances and build readiness. Ted O'Brien will move to the Shadow Ministry for Foreign Affairs. Ted will bring the moral and strategic clarity to Australia's foreign policy that has been lacking under this government. He'll be supported by Senator Dave Sharma, who'll serve in the role of Shadow Assistant Minister for International Development and the Indo-Pacific. Senator James Patterson will become the Shadow Minister for Defence. James will be relentless, as he always is, in holding Labor to account for its failures on defence funding, readiness and delivery, because deterrence depends on capability, not slogans. He'll work side by side with Phil Thompson, a veteran, of course, who'll serve as Shadow Minister for Defence Industry and Defence Personnel, a role that has been elevated to Shadow Cabinet in recognition of the growing strategic challenges Australia now faces. Together with Andrew Hastie and Aaron Violi, James and Phil will ensure that Australia capitalises on the economic and strategic opportunities created by AUKUS. Now, making life easier for families is a top priority for the Liberal Party and coalition I lead. Melissa McIntosh will take on the role of Shadow Minister for Families and Social Services, Shadow Minister for the NDIS and Shadow Minister for Women. This is a key economic portfolio, lifting participation, reducing long-term unemployment and ensuring families can get ahead. Melissa will be on the front line fighting for Australian families that are falling further and further behind under this Prime Minister. Assisting Mel will be Senator Matt O'Sullivan as the Shadow Minister for Choice in Childcare and Early Childhood. Matt's role is to develop a childcare policy that works for families, that's flexible for families who have different needs as we get right across our country. Matt will champion choice to meet those different needs, not a one-size-fits-all approach, so parents can make decisions that work for them. We need quality government services that use every taxpayer dollar with great care, because we know how hard people have to work for that income to pay those taxes. Henry Pike will enter the front bench as a Shadow Assistant Minister for NDIS and Disabilities and Shadow Assistant Minister for Mental Health. Henry will bring rigour and urgency to make the NDIS sustainable now and into the future. We will stop the fraud, end the waste and protect the NDIS for those who need it most in this country. Senator Anne Ruston will continue as the Shadow Minister for Health and Aged Care and Deputy Leader of Opposition in the Senate, and will scrutinise the implementation of Labor's aged care reforms, exposing Labor's promises on bulk billing, and deliver policy that makes the health system work better for Australians. Senator Sarah Henderson, the Shadow Minister for Communications and Digital Safety, will stand up for media competition and free speech and ensure digital safety efforts target criminals and predators, not lawful, law-abiding Australians. Julian Leeser will continue as Shadow Minister for Education and add responsibilities as Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians. Julian will work closely with Jacinta Price and Matt O'Sullivan to advance an agenda where trade is valued as highly as a university degree, where education is about knowledge and critical thinking, not ideological indoctrination. Home ownership and the prospect of home ownership needs to again become a centrepiece of the Australian dream. That is not how younger Australians see it right now. Senator Andrew Bragg continues as the Shadow Minister for Housing and Homelessness and will take on the role of Shadow Minister for the Environment as well. Andrew's goal will be simple. He's the Shadow Minister for getting more houses built and more Australians owning their home. His job is to unblock supply, speed up approvals and demolish the barriers that stop homes from being built. And as Environment spokesperson, he'll ensure Australia has a practical, effective approach to environmental protection. He'll put an end to the excessive regulations that is choking new housing supply and holding back investment in job-creating projects, whilst also ensuring that we protect our environment. Ably assisting him in this task will be Cameron Caldwell as Shadow Assistant Minister for Housing, who will be promoted to Chief Opposition Whip. James McGrath will continue in a closely related role as Shadow Minister for Urban Infrastructure and Cities and Shadow Minister of State. The front bench is also about revival. Simon Kennedy and Zoe McKenzie will be elevated to crucial roles in our economic and broader team. Simon Kennedy will be elevated to the position of Shadow Assistant Minister to the Leader of the Opposition, in addition to serving as the Shadow Assistant Minister for Finance and the co-chair of our Coalition Policy Development Task Force. Zoe McKenzie will continue as Shadow Cabinet Secretary, but will add the important role of co-chair along with Simon of the Coalition Policy Development Task Force. Zoe will also serve as Shadow Assistant Minister for Employment and Industrial Relations. Ben Small will take up the position of Shadow Assistant Minister for Electoral Matters and Shadow Assistant Minister for Infrastructure, and Senator Leah Blythe will take on the position of Shadow Assistant Minister for Defence Infrastructure, an enormously important issue now with big projects starting to proceed at Henderson, Western Australia, Osborne in South Australia. We're waiting for the East Coast Submarine Base site to be named. We may be waiting for a long time, sadly, but that whole role of defence infrastructure is becoming more and more important. Unfortunately, not everybody can have a front bench role, and I thank the outgoing members of the Shadow Ministry for their tireless service to our country. We're fortunate to have real depth of talent in our party room, and I'm committed to drawing on all of it. Our people are our greatest strength, and we'll make the most of everyone's contribution. I want a culture of healthy competition, the kind that lifts us all to deliver for Australians and to hold a bad government to account. This is a team with two overriding priorities: restore Australia's standard of living and protect our way of life, because Australia is worth fighting for.